Sure. I mean, are there? Well, we're 4 minutes earlier. Is there anybody in the waiting room?
No, I guess we can wait. We can wait. Are we waiting on Mike and anyone else?
Can you hear
And
me?
we got. Oh, that's Mary. That's Mary on the phone.
We can hear you, Mike. Good evening.
Good evening.
So, Mr. Warner, I'm on the phone and I'm in and out of dead zone, so I'll stay on as long as I can.
Okay. So we got like 1 minute.
Okay.
Are we just giving people a chance to, join or?
Yes.
Okay. Are we limited to an hour and a half, David?
Not that I know of. Laser, do you know?
In terms of recording,
Well,
or
I thought that there was a limit to an hour and a half because of the requirement to transcribe the meetings, so that we were trying to keep it sort of.
Oh no, I think I can go up to 4 hours because I just got back last night's meeting and I was able to save that and delete what was in the cloud. So with this meeting, I think you have about 4 hours.
Okay, well, I certainly hope it's not going to last 4 hours.
We'll see, because
Let's make that a goal
the
to
other
not
side
last
is
4 hours.
combined committees to have efficiency, but the meeting will get longer if there's twice as much to cover. So we'll see.
All right, I think.
All right, so let's
an
get
hour and a
started.
half.
Welcome to the first combined finance and fiscal planning committee meeting.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Warner. Are you going live now? I didn't hit record yet.
Sure, go ahead. Let me know when I'm on.
Okay. Steve, are you ready? All right, so we're live. Okay.
Okay. Welcome to the first Finance and Fiscal Planning Committee meeting. We're a combination of a fiscal planning committee and a facilities committee from last year. This is part of an effort by the board to sort of cut overhead and be more efficient by having fewer committees. We'll see how it works out. I think we should start out by introducing ourselves. Lori, you want to go first?
Sure, I'm Lori D'Amico. I'm Mary O'Neill's secretary. I'm here to take notes for the financial piece of it.
I'm David Warner, member of the Board of Education. Heather?
Hi, I'm Heather Gordon. I'm Michael Falcone's assistant, and I'm also here to take notes for the facilities end of the meeting.
Great. Steve?
Me? I'm Steve Morton. Now I'm just a regular parent here from Woodland High School.
That's how it goes. Mike? You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, there you go.
Michael Falcone, I'm the Director of Facilities and Operations for the Greenburgh Central School District.
Very good. Tanya? You're muted.
Yep. Tanya Dragic, trustee.
Ashley?
Ashley Pineda, trustee.
Jessica?
Hi, I'm Jessica Muldoon, parent of a LFJ student.
Leonardo?
I'm Chris Fallon, parent of Leonardo and Nicholas.
Very good. Amy?
Hi, I'm Amy Ashley Moore, and I'm the district treasurer.
Katie?
Hi, I'm Katie McGee. I'm a parent of a 6th grader.
Laser?
Laser alert, network administrator.
Steve? Greenburgh CSD? TCM?
I am Tracy, parent of a 1st grader, a 7th grader, and a 9th grader.
Ruth? Ruth? All right, so you're muted if you're trying to talk. You need to unmute yourself. Okay. Rita? Connecting to audio.
I think Rita is trying to connect.
Yes.
I just unmuted myself. Was I supposed to say something?
Just introduce yourself.
Ruth Mitchell,
Very good.
community advocate.
And did Rita Jones? Hey, Rita Jones, would you like to introduce yourself?
Rita, you gotta unmute yourself.
You gotta hit that unmute button.
She didn't hear you. She didn't hear you.
Okay. And I think Mary? And Carol, would you like to introduce yourself?
Carol Allen from Beechwood Road in Hartsdale, community member.
Very good. Okay. So basically, I have an agenda that's posted on Google Docs, and I'll be sharing the screen so you can take a look at it as we move along through the agenda. I'll try to move fairly quickly as we have quite a long agenda. Just a moment, see if I can share this here. Can you see the agenda?
Yes.
Good. All right, we're on item 1, introductions.
Ruth, I was letting you know if you wanted to say something, you have to unmute yourself. You are muted. They was asking you to introduce yourself, but you couldn't hear them. David Warner was asking. Talk to you later. Bye.
Okay. Rita, if you want to chime in, go ahead. All right.
And
So,
still she can't hear.
yeah, we'll do the best we can. I hope that you can hear us. Item 2, elect chair, appoint secretary, determine membership request to BOE. I happen to be anchoring things at the moment because I chaired the previous committees that came before this. I would be interested in serving as the chair of this committee. Is anyone else interested?
I nominate you, David.
We
Okay.
nominate you, David. I'm gonna stick to the education committee.
Okay, that's and Ashley's got his hands full with safety and technology.
Right.
All right. Are there any other nominations? Okay, I guess I'm it.
You're it.
All right, thank you. Appointing secretary. It looks like we have 2 different admins here who are taking minutes of the different portions of the meeting. So I guess we'll leave them in place for now. So if you guys decide that you want one person to take notes in the future, let me know. But for right now, I'm fine with a dual recording function. Then determine membership request to Board of Education. Okay, so in more strictly enforcing board policy 2210, the board has asked that we attempt to track who is actually a member of the committee. So I'm basically thinking that what I need to do is, we see who shows up from the community, and I'm not going to turn anybody down. So if you're here and you think that you'd like to meet once a month to discuss facilities and finances over the course of this year, I would like you to tell us that. And the simplest way to tell us that is to use the chat feature. I'm going to stop sharing for a second so I can do that. And so if you run your cursor down towards the bottom, for those of you who are less familiar, there's a little thing called chat. And if you click on that chat, then what will happen is you will be able to, the little box will appear and you can type messages into it. And so I'm going to type the message: if you want to join the committee, reply that you do. And then what happens is, yes, Tanya.
So I have a question just regarding this membership. Does that mean that those who sign up are under some sort of obligation to come to all of our meetings? And how does that differ from people who just come kind of ad hoc, when they can or feel like there's something important that's being discussed that they would like to participate in?
Well, what happens is, and I've chaired the CEC for a long time, so it didn't usually come up because the job of the CEC was largely to take in data from everyone. A committee like this will make recommendations to the board from time to time. And it may be that not everyone agrees on a particular recommendation. Like, for example, I think the big job that we have this year is we have a limited pot of money. We have many facilities needs, a lot of them having to do with air quality, and more projects than we have money for. So which ones do we attack first, right? So we come up with some kind of recommendation, and some people may want to do things one way, and people may want to do things another way. We'll come up with options, and then we may have to actually vote in the committee on what our recommendation is. And in that case, it's really handy to be on the list. So what I expect to have happen is that I'll present the list to the board. I assume they'll let people on. And then if it comes down to a really contentious issue and we have to vote on it, then that membership will make a difference.
Well, I think that then maybe somehow we need to advertise that this particular committee is accepting memberships, right? Because I think the problem is if there is a meeting that comes to some kind of a vote and we have people who have signed up and then people who are there ad hoc, there may be some confusion as to, who can or can't vote. And so
I assume there needs to be a board resolution saying, here's the list of people who signed up. Do you want to be on the list? We can go through an advertising process. We can publish that so that if you didn't happen to come to this meeting, you could still get on.
Right.
And we can have a window until, say, the next board meeting to add people to that list and go from there.
Sounds good. Okay.
So advertise membership. Okay. So in the meantime, I will copy the contents of the chat, and if you've already responded, several people have said they'd like to join the committee, then we're good. And all right, so that's kind of that.
I think Chris has a question.
Yes.
Just as a point of order, I hate to out the fourth board member on this meeting, but because there are 4 of you, I'm assuming that the fourth board member would not be taking part in the votes. Otherwise, you have quorum of the board.
I will not be joining the committee. I will just be popping in when I can as a parent.
There's she's
Thank
in
you for
she's in
clarifying.
observer mode. Okay,
That's fine.
and you're, yes, you are not allowed to have a quorum of the board as members. Otherwise, you've got a board meeting. Okay, so she's allowed to observe, but if there comes to a vote, she can't do it because she didn't get herself appointed to this particular committee, although she serves on others. Okay, so yes, the official board members are Tanya Dragic and myself and Ashley. So that's the limit, 3 board members. All right. Moving on. Review draft committee mission and charges. And I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. This out. And we zip on past the agenda proper. We have 2 sets of minutes from last year. One is the facilities committee meeting that happened on February 19th. And if you happen to be there, especially, take a look at this and see if you see anything obviously wrong with it or anything that needs to be fixed or added, and we'll amend it if we need to. We went over so the standard things. If you're looking back at February, right? We looked at the progress of the mansion repairs, the building conditions survey from BBS, Woodlands High School, the status of the vestibule at that time, the security vestibule. We need to build one out in front of the high school. The awning proposal for R.J. Bailey, which was going to connect the sort of the art wing of Woodlands with the breezeway doors, so that you could walk there from one place to the other without getting rained on. The status of the caretaker's house, and we'll talk a little bit more about that today. Doors at Highview, replacements and fixes, issues at Lee F. Jackson, and the facilities tour, and then questions and concerns from people coming back. There was a suggestion that you have a 10-year plan in order to get the facilities up to speed instead of like a 5-year plan. And we probably need to go back and talk about that a little bit more. Acquiring architecture expertise. If you know an architect, we're talking about this membership driving thing. If you happen to know an architect, I've got an extra neighbor that I bug from time to time, but I haven't been able to get him to come on the committee. If you know anybody who would be interested, maybe someone retired even, that would be helpful. And that was the content of that meeting. Does anybody see anything in that set of minutes that they think needs to be fixed?
David, I would just, to Chris's earlier point, it looks like we had 4 board members listed on there, even though I know we only had 3 that were on the committee and the 4th was in observer mode as well. We may want to call that out just so that if someone sees these minutes somewhere, they don't think that we had an illegal board meeting.
All right, eliminate observer member from.
Or just put in parentheses observer. So
yeah,
that
you could just put in parentheses.
Okay. Note observer member from 2/19, 20 minutes. Will do. I will amend the minutes accordingly.
Would it be possible to make the print a little larger?
Yes, increase point size.
No, I mean on the screen right now.
I think if you can just like zoom in on your document, David.
Let's see.
Just click the little plus.
I'm doing that. Anything
Okay.
happening? There we go.
Yep.
That's better.
That's better? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So I will make the requested amendments. Do I hear a motion to adopt this set of minutes as amended?
So moved.
There is a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're good. Okay, second set of minutes. This is the fiscal planning committee meeting held on May 16th. At this point, we're in Zoom land. So what had happened is we were all doing everything remote because COVID-19 had hit, and we were on draft 6 of the budget, and we went through. We had, I believe, brought the budget down to the point at which it was the same as a contingency budget, that it was a 0% increase, and there were various comments in various directions on what we needed to do. But the major thing that came back is we said that we would scroll into the end here, restore $1.3 million of capital project funds that had been cut from earlier drafts of the budget. So we'd have some money to repair facilities and perform capital projects, and then find suggested alternative budget cuts from the community and from the board, because the board went out and tried to figure it out too, in an attempt to come as close to the 0% tax level increase as possible. I think we ended up with a 0.58% increase on the budget. So it wasn't a 0, but it was much less than we expected. I think we ended up with a $71 million budget instead of normally you'd end up with about a $73 million budget on an average year. So we went through that, and that's how the actual budget came out. But this is that part of how we got there. Does anybody see anything on this set of meeting notes that needs to be amended?
We just take a look at the attendee list and see if the same issue appears.
Sure.
Well, and I wasn't there. I had a family emergency and I couldn't make it in the end. So you can take me off.
Delete.
No, observer, David.
Right, but Chris Fallon was
Chris
not there.
Fallon is not a board member. She doesn't need to be an observer. We're
Yeah, I'm
removing
sorry.
her
I'm
from the
talking
list.
about the 4th member.
Yes, and then 5, 16, 20, that's BOE member designated as observer. Okay, so I will make those amendments. Anybody else? Okay, hearing none. Do I hear a motion to adopt this set of meeting notes as the minutes of the May 16th fiscal planning committee meeting?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Done. Okay. Review draft mission and charges. Just a second. Okay, so this is supposed to be a combined committee. So this description, if it passes muster, will go up on the website as the introductory text for the new committee. In an effort to reduce the number of committees associated with our district, the Board of Education has combined the Fiscal Planning Committee and Facilities Committees into a single Finance and Facilities Committee. Then I have a couple of quotes from a couple of policies justifying why we would have these committees. And then the mission of the Finance and Facilities Committee is to provide feedback to the Board of Education regarding budget development, finances, and facilities. Specifically, the Finance and Facilities Committee shall make recommendations to the Board of Education as follows. Now, I should tell you, because we're committee of the district, what happens is that we will take a draft of this, which is derived from the previous committees and some input from Dr. Chase. We'll push it back to the superintendent. She'll decide what the final draft presented to the board is, and then the board votes to approve this or not. But what I've got at this point is that the charges would be for development of the 2021-22 annual school budget. Every year we try to get involved in the planning process a little bit, and then we actually get some feedback on the budget. And the minutes we just passed are an example of that. Regarding construction, remodeling, and repair of district facilities, that's the standard thing that the facilities committee did. To update our 5-year financial plan, that's a projection, and we'll look at that in a little while. We're trying to see, 5 years out, if we keep going like we're going, do we run out of money? And to prepare a comprehensive annual financial report, that is a new requirement. I think the superintendent has placed that in as, well, helped in negotiating that as an objective and a goal for this year. CAFR, and towards the end of this meeting, we'll have like a 1-page description of what goes into that report and how it's different from the independent audit that we have now. It's that plus a lot more, 10 years of stuff. And then finally, to ensure fiscal transparency. So those would be the charges. Anybody have any comment of anything they want to change or add? Yes, Tanya.
So I have 2 comments. The first is that I would take out the 2021-22 annual school budget, because you just might want to reuse these next year. And so you don't have to, I don't think.
So just take out the 2021 and 2022, and it will just say annual school budget, and I don't have to update the topic every year.
Period, right.
Okay.
And then the second thing is that at the very end, I would say fiscal accountability and transparency.
Fiscal accountability. That's a new word. Okay.
Very popular these days.
Yes, and transparency should be. Okay. We will make those changes. Anything else?
David, I had one. I think for that second bullet point, I think we should add in the word prioritization, because we need to prioritize. And I think that's where this committee can truly have an impact, helping with the recommendations for how to prioritize
regarding prioritization of
and then the
construction, remodeling, and repair of district facilities.
Yep.
Okay, will do. Anybody else? Yes, Dr. Allen.
I would like to comment that given the enormity of our fiscal issues and our facilities issues, it would not be possible to do justice to both of these topics with only monthly meetings.
With what?
Monthly meetings. Once a month is not adequate to address all these issues of major importance, in my opinion.
Well, that is going to be the next topic that we discuss, how often we meet and for what purposes. So that's a very good segue. Does anybody else have anything they want to change on this draft before we move on? Okay, moving on. Schedule 2020 and 2021 meetings. Per the Board of Education, we need to develop a recommendation for long-term ventilation and other facilities repairs and required funding, and should schedule meetings as necessary to do so. Perfect. Fiscal planning budget meetings. So we've got 2 things to worry about. We've got to come up with this recommendation. We need to know if we need a bond, and you're telling me that it's important that we get to a certain point before we drop back to monthly meetings. And then once we've got that recommendation, then at about that point, the regular budget process will start to kick into high gear, as it always does in the spring, and we can go from there. So, Dr. Allen, how often do you think we need to meet in order to get this done?
I had not given that any thought, but it would need to be at least twice a month.
Okay. 2 times per month. Anyone else have any comments on that? Let me, I need to stop sharing the screen for a minute so I can see people. Anyone else?
Well,
yes.
I think it would be great to meet twice a month. I'm just trying to, think between twice monthly board meetings, special meetings of the board, other committees that, need a chance to meet regularly as well.
It will be difficult.
It would be difficult, even though I understand that it's probably would be good. I don't know. I'd like to hear from the other community members how they feel about it.
Okay. Would anyone else like to say anything? Yes, Katie.
I think it's a great target. I wonder, does it have to be decided that it will be twice a month, or can we just, I don't know. I mean, if things come up, like say you've had special meetings 3 times in a month, maybe you wouldn't have time to do this twice, but aren't having special meetings, you might have time. So can you look can you see what your next few weeks are like? I don't know. Dr. Allen.
So I'm thinking that let me describe. Okay, so there's the budget process, and I think monthly meetings work okay for the spring budget process. I think we might want to sprint towards getting some kind of recommendation together. What I planned to do today was, if you've looked at the rest of the agenda, I have a bunch of numbers. We're gathering numbers on each facility and what needs to be done at a high level from various memos and emails and estimates that we've gotten from our BBS architecture primarily. And we need to look at those numbers, figure out how much money we've got, fill in any blanks for any numbers that any projects we don't have numbers for, and then do a subtraction problem and say, okay, here are our choices for what we can do within this fiscal year, what we can do in the next fiscal year, and what we have to bond. Okay, and that's more or less filling out a chart. Okay, you list all the facilities, you list the tasks, you list the costs, you do the subtraction, you say, should we go to bond? And maybe you'll come up with 2 or 3 different options, and we'll go back and forth on that. So the driving factor is how fast can we fill in the numbers. So if we come up with a set of, I need costs on this, that, and the other thing, and the architects can come back to us in 2 weeks, we could meet again in 2 weeks and try and make progress on that task. And if we're there, we drop back to a monthly thing. So I think what we should do is we should schedule 1 meeting 2 weeks from now and see how that goes. What do other people think? All right, so 1 meeting 2 weeks from now.
We just make sure it's in the early evening. I think that's what works for most folks.
Okay, early evening? Yes, yes. Okay, so let's see. It is now October 28th. So we're looking for somewhere around November 5th, the week of November 16th. Do people like Wednesdays? Would you like to meet on Wednesday, the 18th of November at 5 p.m.?
Right now, that sounds okay, but
we'll see if something else comes. Yes. Okay. So we will tentatively schedule next meeting 11, 18, 20, 5 p.m. Zoom.
I mean, David, I just, this is, it's actually a very complicated discussion that we have to have, because we currently have the building condition surveys, and I think that these architects actually did a really great job of sort of laying it out in terms of priorities. And I just would like, you know, we will have to you know, have some kind of a bond to address some of these issues. But I think it would be really important to hear, not just from this committee, but from as many people as possible in terms of these priorities, you know, how we're going to actually structure this, you know, to address things kind of, you know, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. And I really don't know how we're going to do that. I mean, is it better to do it in the context of actual board meetings as new business, or in terms of this committee, or?
I think that what our job is to come back with a recommendation to the board. If it's not clear that everybody's leaning in the same direction, we may present multiple options to the board. And if you want to go out to the community at large and get feedback, then rather than throwing out 20 things for them to look at and scratch their heads over, you come up with 2 or 3 good options, lay those out, the virtues and vices of each option, and then let them come back and choose between the options. That works for a large group of people.
And do you think that we should use something like thought exchange for this, or are we going to be using our various social media to get input for these various sort of proposals? I mean, it just seems that, you know, I mean, I don't know how many of us there are here, I'm trying to count, but, you know, it would be nice to get more input than just from
we will do that. All right, then let's see how it yes. Go ahead.
Oh, me, Chris?
Yes.
Sorry, I know you said the 18th. I didn't know if anybody wanted to look at the 11th. The 18th is the night after your board meeting. And the 11th, although it's Veterans Day, maybe.
Yeah, all schools closed. I think, yeah. This is the kind of topic where you need your staff to be around.
Okay. All right.
Okay. All right.
I think Carol has a question.
Yes, Carol.
Actually, it is a comment. In order to be effective, I really think that it is the responsibility of this committee to look at the options and tell the board which they feel is the best option as a recommendation. And of course, you had mentioned here are the other things that we considered, but after looking at everything in depth, here is the option that we believe is the best. Otherwise, you'll be spending hours and hours in your board meetings debating the pros and cons of each of the options.
So you're gonna want to go A, B, C, and A is the option that most people prefer. I can do that. Heather, are you all right? All right. Back to the agenda. Okay. Okay. Facilities. The next item on the agenda is to do a rundown of the status of all the facilities. Mike, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. So I'll read stuff out, and you tell me how things are updated, or how things have changed from what I've got. So COVID-19 district-wide ventilation. I talked about what the standards were, because I had a question about that. It looks like it's 15 CFM per student if you're age 9 or above. It's 17 CFM per minute for an adult in an office, and you'll notice that comes into play because a lot of the offices have natural ventilation. Except for Lee F. Jackson and ECP at Highview, most elementary offices rely natural ventilation. Office doors are to be left open until issues are addressed. Are you addressing issues? Are you putting fans into offices? What's happening there?
There are currently fans at on every room at Bailey School. LF Jackson. I think you might have LF Jackson.
LF Jackson is okay.
Yes, yes. LF Jackson is fine. So is Highview School. But I know at the high school, as I told you before, we ended up putting fans in just the B wing, where the ventilation was not as great as they would like it to be. The exhaust fans were supposed to be delivered today. I didn't hear anything about that. There's 2 exhaust fans that were on order, and that's where we're at with the ventilation.
And do we know how much those exhaust fans? Well, we should if they're being delivered. How much they cost?
The estimate is around 22,000 each.
Okay, 22K each. Okay. The EnviroScience, yes.
Sorry, you know what I'm going to ask. Before you go into the building level detail, I'm just wondering why we're not using the most up-to-date standards from ASHRAE. They're using the 2013 standards and they've been updated twice at least since then, the most recently in 2019. Do we know why they're not using the current standards?
I forwarded your email and sent the question. I did not get a response to that. Mike, do you know anything that I don't know? There's a 2013 ventilation standard and there's a 2019 ventilation standard. And all of the EnviroScience reports say we're in compliance with the ASHRAE 2013 standard.
I'd have to reach out.
Okay. Why 2013 standard? So we'll try again.
Thank you.
ASHRAE. Okay. Okay, so building by building. CF Jackson, manual damper procedure required to prevent winter furnace equipment freeze up shutdown. So if you've ever been in the Leaf Jackson HVAC room, there's kind of a wind tunnel. I think I even have a little film of it posted on the website if you want to look at that. And there are a bunch of dampers, a bunch of slats that are supposed to open and close automatically to let air in as required. If it gets too cold and the slats are too open, then I think it'll be in danger of freezing some of the equipment around the furnace, so it'll shut down. Am I correct in that, Mike?
We're going to monitor the amount of fresh air that comes on in.
And then you move it by hand. You move each slat by hand, correct?
We're moving them by hand. Many years ago, these things were, like I said, frozen shut. So we manually opened up these these dampers. So we're going to have to monitor it the colder it gets.
And the ideal is if you had the control system that's listed, I guess it was part of the summer projects estimate originally for $450,000. Would it then function automatically?
Yes. What happens is that these dampers are adjusted by controls. You have outside air, you have exhaust air, supply air, and then you also have freeze stats. So there's actually 3 different controls. If I'm not missing a 4th one, I'm trying to think at the top of my head. They all need to be operating at the same time in order for the system to work properly. And as I mentioned to you before, the pneumatics, a lot of them have been piecemealed on all of the buildings. This is on every one of the buildings. So right now we will monitor them.
Okay. Yes, Ashley.
So I brought this up in previous meetings. I'm not sure if this applies. Mr. Falcone, for all of these projects, I guess as we go through, if any of them can be started under an EPC, an energy performance contract, that might give us advantages to start it sooner rather than later from a funding perspective. I'm not sure if any of these apply. Like the dampers, I'm thinking maybe there's something for efficiency in terms of heating and cooling. So maybe it applies somehow that way or something along those lines.
And you've mentioned this before in saying that we need to have a list. And once again, I have to state to you, we are not the professionals. We have to leave it up to the architect to say to the architect, we want to go forward with an EPC. What falls underneath the EPC? We need to have the architects involved. In fact, I kept my mouth quiet, but even with your 5-year capital plan or what's first, second, and third, they are the professionals. We shouldn't have to be saying, well, let's pick this out, this out, this out. We need to leave the chief in charge, and that's the architects. If we leave them in charge, we will follow through instead of my opinion is this, my opinion is this, my opinion is this. Let them come up with the plan. That's
my expectation would be that we will come up with a rough idea of like, are we going to spend money on ventilating the mansion versus are we going to spend money on ventilating the main building of ECP, and which is most important? And we'll come back with high level directions like that, and then we'll submit that back to the architects and let them fill in the details. That's my, I don't expect to come up with a final plan myself.
So I just want to make a comment, Mr. Falcone, I appreciate your point. What I will say is this, our architects, they're very knowledgeable. They are the experts. I'm not trying to supersede or instruct them on how to do their job. My question is simply this. We've been waiting for a long time for them to give us a list. If for some reason they have not prioritized that, I would like us to go back to them and say, please prioritize that, because the EPC is potentially a mechanism that we could use to move these projects along from a budgetary perspective and not sit here and potentially have to come up with individual dedicated funding for it. That's my only point.
All offices have returning to the agenda. Other comments? Highview, 4 ECP classrooms and office staff have moved in from the main ECP building to Highview for this year. See map, just a second, scroll down here a little bit. I may be scrolling longer than I think. So basically what happened was, because ECP main building is limited to natural ventilation, and I think Mike did some checking and found certain like the vents to the offices were not didn't go anywhere. They went to an attic and it had no outlet, and there were problems that you didn't have fans in the windows. You couldn't get the windows open in some cases.
The windows are screwed shut and they're they're missing the balance is what I understand. So you can't keep them open. That poses a danger. Okay. It's just trying to get cross ventilation. In certain classrooms, they only have one window on one side versus, just an air conditioner that you have to take the air conditioner out to try to get some kind of ventilation in that room. To try to, like I said, it's a balloon that you're trying to push air into. It's not going to gather any more fresh air than what you push into it in the very beginning.
So what we did was, or what Mike and staff have done is, here's Highview Elementary School. So two special education classrooms. You have 2 ECP special ed classrooms were put in an area that had bathrooms between the 2 classes, and then you had another ECP class across the way, and one of the bathrooms is designated for that. And then down here by the innovation area and the library, we put the one ECP class in here, and then Don Mail and company are in the library itself. So they have good ventilation. All the classrooms in ECP have good ventilation. The only problem is, I believe the offices have natural ventilation, so windows. Are there fans being put in to areas like the principal's office, or what are they doing? Mike?
I'm sorry about that. I got interrupted. What was that?
ECP, all the classrooms have good ventilation. So that means the ECP offices, which were in the library, have good ventilation. But I think the principal's office, according to the EnviroScience report, the principal's office relies on natural ventilation. Are we doing anything to? Are we getting them a fan?
Yes, that fan's on order. But and he's opened up. The difference between his office is that he keeps his door open on the exterior door that goes to the hallway. Okay, so what happens? I have exhaust fans that are in the hallway as well. So he'll get his cross ventilation. He gets ventilation very, as long as he keeps that door open.
As long as he keeps that door open.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. So that's the major thing that went on with Highview. Going back up to the next school here. RJ Bailey, classroom plans are in place, or I think you already said this. And when the students are present, so you have the arrangement with the fans. You want to tell them about the sliding windows with the fans?
Well, it's self-explanatory. The fans stay in all the time. They have a window in front of it that we close at night, so the cold air doesn't come on in. We open up the inside window, so we have fans that introduce into the classrooms.
And all classrooms have thermostats, so they'll know if they get cold, and we can provide supplementary heat if we think so. But we have steam heat, so it's very likely that there'll be enough heat to maintain temperature, and unless you have a wind storm.
Yeah, the BTUs that come out of those radiators are extremely high, so you're not going to have a problem with keeping that building warm at all.
Long-term classroom unit replacement can be completed over the summer if you want to dedicate the money to it. At our last board meeting where we had the architects in, they quoted that it was somewhere around $3 million, and that's also in the building conditions survey. If we want to go room by room and box by box, there are units that are supposed to be introducing air. And that would do the same thing as the fans, but I think make sure that the air is conditioned on the way in. So that's a decision, what the relative priority of that is. Do you have a comment, Mike?
No, you know what? Let's look at the 5-year capital plan, and then let's hear what the architect has to say, whether we move forward.
Then exhaust fans for the gym and the auditorium. Now, there were cost estimates. One was $200,000 and one was $150,000. One could be replaced, and one had to be replaced, and one could possibly be repaired. Do we have an updated cost estimate? Are those still accurate figures, or is it different?
Those are accurate figures if you're replacing. Okay, we remember you said try to repair them and try to get them working. So I do have an estimate from a contractor to try to get them working with the variable speed motors. And we're waiting for the electrician to give us a price. I believe it was something like $75,000 to get the motors, to try to do the work on trying to get the old motors off, the squirrel cages. It's not just putting a motor in and taking a motor out. There's a lot to it. Heather, I hate to ask you, but I think it's $75,000. Or $70,000.
And that's without the electric work?
That's without the electric work.
Yeah, I think it totaled like 80,000, something like that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Then offices rely on natural ventilation. So that's pretty much true all across RJ Bailey. Do they have fans too, or are they just keeping their doors open?
Everybody has fans. I bought fans for every room.
Okay, so offices as well. Great. In offices. Okay. Then Woodlands. The 2 large exhaust fans that failed after initially running, you said those were coming in. We know how much they, oh yeah, well, you told us already how much they cost, right? Replacements, okay, so you said they arrived?
They were supposed to arrive today, and I didn't hear anything from my custodial staff, but I will check up on that tomorrow.
Okay, should have arrived. And then, so the office, the report on the office is it's mixed, right? So the superintendent's office area, all the central office people who evacuated to what used to be the principal's office, they have ventilation. The guidance area is good. Anybody on the south side of the C wing has ventilation. Other offices, so I think maybe on the business side, I think that you guys are relying on natural ventilation. Are there fans for that?
We open up the windows. At least Heather and I open up the windows every single day, and we feel like we get a nice breeze when I open up one window and I go over to basically where Lori is, and I open up her window or the one next door. We do have a little fan that we put in the window, and we feel a circulation going on. Okay. I don't know how many CFMs, but I do get circulation down there.
And do you anticipate doing anything more, or you want to test it as is?
You know, if I put 2 fans in a window, you're going to get a huge effect.
It'll be too much.
Yeah. Well, you know what? 2 doors down, each one of those women have fans. So if they want the fans, they can go ahead and put them in. But we open up ours every single day.
Okay. So it sounds like you want to test from here. Okay, good. Mansion repair and air quality. So we already passed the necessary secret declaration and set aside the funding for the least expensive mansion roof, the asphalt shingle roof. I believe we've been busy doing other things, and so that project has not moved forward yet. And then
I thought they filed it.
They filed. Good.
Yeah. So we can't do anything without SCD approval.
And has there been any response?
We have no response yet, but I do know it's up there. I saw it on SCD website.
Okay, so they know it's there, but all right. So from SCD yet. Okay, so how long ago did we submit? Do you remember?
You know what? I know they submitted something. I know SCD got back to us and they forgot something. So I'm not quite sure when.
Okay, so it's not the first submittal. Okay, so I remember there was like some kind of turnaround time, like 8 weeks and above. Okay, so second submittal. Okay. All right, so that's in process. ECP ventilation versus Leah Jackson.
I have a question before you move on.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if Mr. Falcone could just give us a quick update on what's going on with the chemicals in the basement of the mansion.
Okay.
You said what's going on with the chemicals at the mansion?
Yes.
That should have been in your board packet. That was all picked up. That was all taken out a couple of months ago when we discussed it. Okay, so everything was taken out and all the chemicals were picked up. I believe you have all the information on it.
We have a list of everything that was taken out. They didn't tell us that it was empty.
Yeah. So.
And the price. We even told you the price. The last time we had the board meeting, and I even responded. We responded in an email saying that it was picked up. Heather, help me out here a little bit. I'm trying to remember because we responded to when it was picked up.
It was picked up probably like a month ago, I would say.
Yes, and I'm positive it was sent to you.
So and was it an $11,900 charge?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. I'm sorry. in my mind, I remember the quote, and I remember that they, for some reason, I was under the impression that it was kind of a staggered removal. And so I didn't realize that, in fact, I guess I misunderstood that, in fact, it has all been removed at this point. So
Yeah.
you're saying it's all gone?
Yeah, it's all gone. It was staggered removal when I was trying to get rid of them a little at a time. There was nobody on contract, so I couldn't spend more than $600 or whatever the limit is how much I can spend, for a contractor.
Right.
And then we ended up, I found out in Putnam, BOCES, that they had a contract for chemical remover. So we had to sign an agreement with them so we can use them. So now we can go ahead and spend over the $600 that we are limited to in our school district.
Got it. All right. Thank you.
So the mansion then no longer has hazardous chemicals in it. Was there any response on whether they needed to go back and remediate anyway, like dust down the cement in the basement to make sure there are no trace chemicals, anything like that from EnviroScience?
No, not that. I think the only thing he recommended was ventilation, but
okay,
that's a discussion that we should have, saying we shouldn't have to move forward unless we're going to start occupying it. Okay,
correct.
Let's not worry too much about it unless we start to occupy it. Once we start occupying it, then we can say, okay, A, B, C, and D has to be done before we occupy the building. Okay, so I think we got the chemicals out, which is old strippers, paints, turpentine, old chemicals. That's all gone now. So that's
good.
Step one.
So now the item for debate will be that we did receive a quote from them for the cost of ventilation fixes, and it was in line with what was in the original BCS, and it was approximately $2 million if you wanted to ventilate all the rooms. So that would be a proposal if we decide that rises to the level of priority that we want. Of course, on the one hand, it benefits the staff, and on the other hand, it frees up part of the high school. But you need to weigh that against, ECP ECP main building fixes and all that kind of thing. And we'll get into that a little bit later.
Let me just update you because Heather ended up checking out with the senior custodians. The fans for the high school did arrive. So just to keep you, fans have arrived. So I predict in the next day, well, weather permitting, that they will start to install the exhaust fans.
Great, good to hear it. Okay, so we did the ECP ventilation cost. So we talked about in the long run, the desired solution is to put all the ECP children in one spot, and that should be a wing of Leah Jackson. And when the economy was going better and the unemployment rate was lower and the stock market wasn't shaky, then we were thinking about having a bond that would be big enough to put that together. We do not have a current estimate from BBS on how much that would cost. I was able to dig around in my old CS Arch stuff when we were doing the large bond, and I think I found an option in which they had not put the wing in all the way up to second grade, and we're just going up to down to the ECP level. So it's ECP through first grade and a bunch of fixes to Leah Jackson, and that was $30 million. So we're pretty sure that the price tag would be smaller than that, but we're not talking about a little tiny bond. So we would need an estimate from BBS on that if that's where we're going long term, and if we look at the economy and think that people can handle it in the community. And then in the short term, you couldn't do it in a year anyway. So probably if there gets to be a vaccine and you start wanting to repopulate the school, then you may want to go back to the ECP main building and fix the ventilation. And that estimate was $575,000, and that also was originally listed in the building conditions survey, and then there was a long email exchange back and forth with BBS on how to do that. So those are the kind of the two input numbers there if you're thinking about short term versus long term. Any comments? Okay. Caretaker's
Yes,
house
I would like
status.
to comment, please.
Go ahead.
I would like to comment. We're talking about universal pre-K in New York State. So any decisions that we make regarding ECP location needs to take into account the number of children that we would expect to be serving with universal pre-K.
Yes. You are correct. So are you thinking about increasing the capacity to a certain extent? Or are you thinking about the amount of aid we get? Or how do you want, or are you thinking about how long the waiting list is when we canvass for ECP age students every year?
If we're talking about universal pre-K, then we need to know the number of children to be served. That's the first step. And without having a waiting list, everybody that needs to be served should be able to get a seat in a classroom.
Well,
Okay,
I think that we,
based on no waiting list.
I mean, I think that we currently have about, I'd say 150 kids. And I do believe that pretty much everyone was served. So, you know, unless Greenburgh gets a huge influx.
Well, the other thing that happened is we were serving all 4-year-olds now. We were doing 3- and 4-year-olds, and that didn't work out for our funding sources. And we've gone to all 4-year-olds. And I thought we were managed to serve all the 4-year-olds. Okay.
Right.
Correct. But we also have to remember that all parents may not have been aware that that option was available for them. So the number might be slightly larger than what we currently have enrolled.
Okay.
I will say, if I can, sometimes it doesn't work out for parents to do the ECP program because they already have their children in daycare for longer hours, and they choose to keep their child in the daycare because it can accommodate the longer hours. So, but I agree, the word should be out there that it exists to make sure you have the people who want it to enroll.
Okay. Very good. Okay, caretaker's house status.
David, sorry, David.
Oh, go ahead.
You just, 2 things. Could you remind me when the last demographic study was done? Was that with the latest project, or was that the previous project? We had
that was the $114 million bond project. That's the last time we did something, and then we everything up to the projection was fine. At least it matched the New York State numbers, and then since then things have changed a little bit.
Okay.
So the projections are not what actually happened.
Okay. Thank you.
Caretaker's house status. So in February, the caretaker's house has been empty for a couple of years. We kept, while we were trying to decide what to do with it, we kept trying to keep people from breaking into it, and people would break in. You'd find drug paraphernalia left behind, and we put plywood over the windows and the doors, and people kept working harder and harder to break in. And we decided that what we needed to do was to tear it down. In October of 2020, the board approved the contract with Gentile Construction for demolition at a cost of $73,790. I think we had a request from a board member to see a bid specification on that to know exactly what's being performed. The motion did pass. We still want to see that information. We have a bid spec on that.
I believe Mairead has it.
Okay. Do you want to describe all the just generally the things that need to be done in order to safely demolish a house?
Yes, the oil tank has to be removed, okay, legally. Can't just grab it and take it out. The oil would have to be removed from the oil tank, and then the asbestos would have to be removed from the pipes. I'm trying to remember what the asbestos report, every detail there was on there, but that would have to be abated first, and then the caretaker's house will be taken down. And
And
currently,
does that,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, does that mean that they're going to cart away everything and fill in the basement?
Yes,
Okay.
that's part of what the bid spec said. Okay, they're gonna cart everything away and they're gonna fill in with clean fill of where the foundation is. Right now, currently, we're waiting for a budget transfer. In order, for me to get a purchase order for the 73,790.
Yeah.
Once that budget transfer is approved by the board, then it'll be moved over. And then we will write a purchase order. After we have the purchase order, I will have a meeting with the contractor and our asbestos monitoring company to get them on a schedule when it's going to start. And then I'll let you know the start date.
Okay. And in the meantime, the instructions that one of the things we talked about was that if we're demolishing the house, we need to submit some archival records to the Westchester and the Greenburgh Historical Societies. And I'm gathering information. I got a little bit from the Wharton family, and I'm going to go after the Pace family. And I have a whole bunch of, we went to see to make sure it wasn't Dr. Hooker's house, and that was not an issue. She actually lived on the opposite side of Juniper Hill on Juniper Hill Road, so that wasn't an issue. And none of the Warburgs found that there was any significance from their perspective. So we were kind of good there, but there was no chance of getting any money for it. But it has value because people lived there and worked for a long time for the good of the district and kind of made sure everybody was safe. So that's what we're going to submit to the archive. So
David, is there anything of value in that house that should be salvaged?
It's pretty barren. There's not much left in there. There's some drug paraphernalia. There's not much in way of furnishing. There's not. They walked me around the inside of the house and took me to the basement and up to the third floor, and I just there wasn't much left there.
Got it. Okay.
Security vestibule. Okay, so to review the security vestibule, the existing guard booth at the front of Woodlands is inside the building. So once you walk in through the doors and they let you in, they're going to go and identify you with lobby guard. And then if you think the jig is up or you don't like that, you just run on past them because there's no control. So we have smart schools funding that can be used for security. And so we have enough to put in a vestibule outside the front door, and we came up with several designs as to what the most efficient security vestibule was, and if we end up with some leftover funding, then we'll do something to help the R.J. Bailey security vestibule, which has the problem that you can't person doing security can't get into the building themselves. So you need to do something to that if you can. I seem to recall that we had an initial round of designs. I think they were numbered 1 through 3, and I had
we picked
I seem
one.
to remember we were not happy with the first 3 designs, and we came up with another one. And then I heard later that maybe it was design number 2 that was chosen. And so I've got a little conflict there. Does anybody have any recollection as to what design got chosen and whether we had to go through a second round of designs?
I believe the principal and the head of security has chosen a design. And I'm not sure if they submitted it to you, but this was quite a while ago.
Okay, so when does construction on that begin?
I think you need to say to move forward. I think it's in the board's hand. It was their recommendation. We can't do anything until the board has a
So board needs to approve. So all right. So in other words, we're not going to walk in and then the wrong vestibule will be sitting there. we have the choice to move it forward. Okay.
So David, I remember that we didn't like any of the designs and we asked them to switch around. There was kind of a weird proposition that they had where the students would be going through like a side, funneling through like a side piece, whereas visitors who were less numerous, presumably, than the students would be going through the main thing, and we asked them to switch it around, but I don't recall that they ever actually responded to that request with a new design.
Okay.
Yeah,
I will do a search.
I think it was two
if
things.
I find one, I find one. If not, I'll show you what we'll at least show you what the administrators want to approve, and then we can go from there.
I think it was two things, David. I think it's exactly what Tanya said. We had asked for a new design, but I think simultaneously we had asked for the principal and Mr. Parker to weigh in on the existing design.
On what they wanted.
So I think that's where it got conflated. Maybe the issue got a little confused. But we had asked for an additional design, and then we had asked for the principal to weigh in on that design. And it sounds like they've already picked one of the existing three, and we probably didn't get the other design. So it sounds like we need more information.
Right. All right.
Quick question, have we actually received the money?
Yes, the funding comes from the state, and it was initially Smart Schools money, which meant it was technology money, and then they changed the legislation on what it qualified for, and it went to security.
I know that the funding, the question is, did we actually receive the money from the state and it's sitting here ready to be dispensed?
That's not how it works with SCD. SCD does not give you money and say, here, hold on to it and see what you can do.
Okay, so
first you have to do
is this funding in danger because of the loss of state revenue because of the pandemic?
That one I don't know, but I do know they already have that money set aside for us. We have applied for it. We need to get the plans for it as soon as possible to send it up there. They will review it. They will then say, yes, this is all, they'll give us all of the Smart School funding for the vestibule.
And if they won't, then they have to tell us at that point. Okay.
Right. Absolutely.
And then get funding commitment. We'll say that. Okay, good. Woodlands Middle High School awning proposal. I talked about that earlier. The idea was that a local vendor could put up an awning, and we priced it out. It was about $50,000. As far as I know, we were going to do it during the summer. I thought it got put on hold when everything else did, except for the air work, for ventilation work. Is that correct, Mike?
Honestly, I didn't know of anything about moving forward with it. I think, I have to put $50,000. We're going to have to put it out to bid. If you're going to be floating a bond anytime soon, I would say, you know what, put it into the building, whether you design it with a hallway, instead of spending the $50,000 just to put up so somebody can stay dry in inclement weather. That how many times you have per year. It's an opinion, but if you want to go forward with that, then I'm going to have to try to find $50,000.
Correct.
Or put it into the budget for next year.
Yes. The question being, is it a lot cheaper to do the awning than to do a hall? And that's another question to ask. We can ask that question. Okay. Building conditions survey. There is a sheet before all of this ventilation stuff ever happened. We did have an updated building conditions survey, and at least at a summary level, we received a document that told us that we have a prioritized list of what to do over the next 5 years, and I think the first year was $30 million. And so when we're talking about a bond, you're thinking about a repair bond, then one of the options might have been, what do they put in as priority one, and go after that. Let's see if I may have to scroll down here for a while to get to it. There it is. Okay, so in 2016, H2M Architects, I think they had the wrong architecture firm on here. I corrected that. Said that the entire costs were, $70 million to fix everything. And then CS Arch came back and said, no, it's more like 78, and all that stuff happened in between. But the last formal BCS we had in 2016 said $70 million to fix everything. And then priority 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5-year plan. What would you do in year 1? They said there was $41 million worth of stuff. And then BBS did it again. You're required to do this every 5 years. Came back in 2020. They said the total price tag had gone up to $89 million. But they said that year 1 was $30,498,000 worth of stuff. The things they thought were most important, the priority 1 stuff for each building, added up to that $30 million. This is a summary. It doesn't show you exactly which repairs they picked out for what year, but we can get that further level of detail. So that's what we have for now to 2025 in terms of having an estimate of if you want to do generic repairs instead of concentrating on ventilation. You have a question? Go ahead.
If you're talking to me, 2 things. I was looking at the BCS data that's posted on the website. It still says draft. So if we have a final version, that would be great if we could post that instead. So looking at the draft information on the website, of course, if you look at between COVID and the BCS, I think ventilation is listed as priority year 1. I looked at it the other day, but I think it's listed as priority year 1 on at least some of the buildings. And with COVID, now I think that should be all of the buildings. So since it coincides the 2, I don't see why we wouldn't combine this expertise opinion with our own common sense and follow along with that.
Okay. And coming up with recommendation.
Correct.
Okay.
But
So that's that.
If we could get the current BCS posted online, that would be fantastic. A not draft version.
Need final version. Post. Okay. Very good. All right. So now throw that into the hopper as well. And that concludes our breakdown, yes, of everything that's going on facilities-wise, or at least the highlights of things going on facilities-wise across the district. Anybody want to add anything?
Well,
yes,
David.
Chris.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
Sorry, I did. If you wanted to do it now or in other concerns, just going to follow up on the encroachment issue. I know a letter, I believe, was sent by Antoinette last year to the church. I don't know about to the homeowners. When I drove by the other day, I feel like there was even more
encroachment
taken. Yeah, or an additional house. Maybe it was just cleaner. Trees on the trees, and I could see further back. Any comments on that?
I know that we
are putting out a RFP for a surveyor, and part of on the surveyor is to mark down anybody who encroached on our property. So that's one of the issues. So we will know everybody who has encroached onto our property on the survey.
Was a letter ever sent to those homeowners, or were we waiting to do the surveying first?
I remember an initial letter, but I don't think we had all the survey information at the time.
All right. Will the RFP be ready soon before the winter, or?
David?
Just wait. Rita, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead, Ms. Jones. I can hear you.
The church came, can you hear me?
Yes.
The church came to a board meeting and spoke. What happened?
basically they wanted to landscape everything and say that
can hear you.
They wanted to landscape the area where the trees had been cut down. And there are difficulties in doing that because it can also give you the sense that it's your land if you provide upkeep for it. So we were required, in order to not end up with an adverse possession issue, that we at least give them a letter saying, stop that, get off our land. There's some other stuff going on with whether somebody was selling the wood, and that was what was actually motivating the excessive cutting down of the trees. But that was not the church doing that. That was a separate individual.
Yeah, because my understanding was the church had a garden where it provided food for needy people.
I will tell you that at one time, the place where that the house is being torn down was also a site of a garden, and that's one of the recollections of one of the people who lived there. That was a wonderful garden spot at one time. So that would be some one method of dealing with things, but then we'd have to do something with the town similar to what we've done elsewhere on the campus in order to make that work. Tanya.
So just before you move on to the finance section of the meeting,
Yes.
I'm just wondering if if you could kind of give some direction regarding how you want to structure the discussion for the next meeting around the building conditions survey, and so what really should be picked and prioritized moving forward in terms of actual projects. So basically I'm asking you to assign us homework for the next meeting so that everyone is sort of on the same page in terms of the information that they're handling, and that we can have a kind of productive discussion about it.
Okay, so one of the things that needs to happen is we need to know how much money we have, which we're about to find out in this second half. And the other thing we need to know is how much things cost. And we have sort of spread out here through all these bullet points a number of possible subsets of what's in the building conditions survey and what their costs are. So we need to provide, I guess, the BCS breakdown in a little more depth and detail. And then we need to make a kind of a rough addition, building by building, which way do you want to lean, right thing. I assume we'll make a big chart. We'll list each building. We'll list the top level projects. We'll list the costs. We'll figure out how much money we've got, how much money we're going to spend this year on ongoing items, how much money we would need to do stuff next year. And I assume that L.F. Jackson wing thing is way out there, and we need an entirely separate estimate for that. So I'm guessing that I'm going to make a matrix out of it. I'm going to get input from the architects on what goes in the matrix, and then we're going to say this goes in this year's column, this goes in next year's column, this goes in the third year's column, and fill in the column. And different people will have different opinions on how to fill in those columns, what goes in year 1, what goes in year 2, what goes in year 3, and that's going to be what's going to form the recommendations.
Okay, that sounds good to me. All right.
Okay. Finance.
Hi, David. I'm sorry,
Yes.
it's Donna. Can I just add with 2 clarifying questions? The fans that we have for Woodlands that arrived today, is that addressing the building B area? And if so, do we need a further test to confirm once those fans are installed that they're doing the proper job?
Mike?
We are, They're installed, and that is for the B area. In fact, we just fixed another fan. A motor went on one of the other fans that were in B building, believe it or not. So we ended up replacing a motor there. But that should address everything in B building. We are going, after everything is addressed, we are going to reassess the ventilation. We're going to bring the company back in to reassess that area.
Sometime in November?
Let's November, yes. According to weather, as long as they get, the fans get in, they will be back as soon as we finish with those.
Okay, and the other question was, is there any update on the listeria report that Dr. Chase had sent out? That there were traces.
No,
the Legionnaire. I'm sorry, the Legionnaire. Yes.
It takes 2 weeks to get the results back, and we're still waiting for the results to get back.
So you did the flush, right? The chlorine flush?
No, we flushed the system out. Okay, we flushed it for 24 hours. But let me make it clear. It is not in the cold water. It's not where the water fountains are. It's only where the hot water heater was. Okay, so if you like to drink hot water, then we have the hot water off, but otherwise it's only on the hot water side of the two buildings.
Okay, Chris?
Sorry, and just one other question. Can you confirm, Mike, what filters were put in? Were they MERV 13, or did our system would it only accept like MERV 8? What were the MERV numbers?
We have MERV 13 in. We're gonna see how our units perform. We might have to, what I was told, we might have to change it very, often, these filters more often.
Yeah.
But right now we have MERV 13s in.
And that's district wide, or are you just talking about the high
school? District wide.
Okay. So my next question.
And honestly, I think that's some of the cause of a lower flow. And they've always, everybody said that if you put the MERV 13s in there, you're gonna have a lower flow of air. And it's probably, in that area could be the filters, but we're going to keep the filters with the exhaust on. I believe we're going to be just fine.
Okay. And you said, my next part was you would have to replace those more often. Are you going to possibly step down, or are you going to get the 13s, and should we be ordering now before everyone in the country needs to order MERV 13s in a few months, just so we don't have a supply issue?
No, I understand what you have. We do have MERV, I believe, 8s or 10s that are in the fan rooms as we speak. So we have to change them out. We can still put them in while we're waiting for the others. What I understand is that even if you put the MERV 8s in, after a month, it's going to have so much dust on them, it's going to act like a MERV 13. I'm not really I'm not too really concerned about it, as all of our group chats. I understand what you hear on the computer, but in actuality, what they do, you can get the same results after a month.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Okay, very good. Ms. Jones, you have your hand up? I see you have your hand on, Ms. Jones. Go ahead and speak. I think she's frozen.
Can you hear me?
Sort of. You could turn your video off, and then you have more bandwidth. But go ahead and speak, and we'll see what we get.
Happened? Oh, you can't hear me?
There you go. We hear you now. Go ahead. I see
Can
you.
you hear me?
I hear you. Speak.
Yeah, you mute people on your thing because I keep getting, my computer keeps getting muted. Can you hear me now?
I hear you now.
Okay. Tell me,
Somebody's on your list.
mentioning Lee F. Jackson, is that instead of
We're having trouble hearing you.
okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, it comes and goes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know. Maybe it's my computer.
Yeah, if you were to turn off the
But
picture, then you might not lag so much.
the what? Turn off what?
Turn off the video. Leave the audio on, but turn off the video, and then maybe your computer will be able to bring your voice
Okay,
across better.
Okay, I turn off the video.
There.
Can you hear me better?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay. You mentioned an extension to Lee F. Jackson. Is that in place of repairing the early childhood building?
My opinion is that that's not the case. That's a matter for debate, but I think that it would take a while to build the extension, and that therefore there will be years during which the children would still need to have good air quality while they're waiting for the new building. That's what I think, but I'm not sure that other people will agree. We can ask the architects for a projection on how long it would take from the time that you would pass a bond to the time that it would be done, but I don't think it's 1 year. I think it's more.
It's more than a year.
Okay. So you think you need a bond before we can fix the early childhood building? Is that what you're saying?
We might need a bond depending on how we prioritize things. So if we say ECP is priority #1 and the mansion can sit there for another year, then you could not have a bond. But if you think you want to get the high school back for the high school students, then you might want to go for a bond. And the question is, how expensive a bond? If it's small, it's one thing. If it's big, it's another.
I think it's important that the ECP has their own building. Yeah, I think it's important that the ECP have their own building. You heard it, right?
Okay. If ECP should have its own building, then you might not want that to be the subject of a bond at all. So you could register that and say, ECP should have its own building. I don't think it should be a wing on Lee F. Jackson.
Okay.
But can I say something, Dave?
Yes.
Okay. Many years ago, they had talked about putting ECP and the kindergarten and the first grade all in Jackson School.
Yes.
And take them out of the place where they just had to leave, out of the old barn.
So that's a matter of debate. If one person feels that they should have a standalone building, but maybe a better standalone building, and another person feels that it should be part of Lee F. Jackson, and will be a difference in cost, then you can have that debate, and then we'll have to get the architects to figure out to cost that out, because the numbers will play a factor in that debate.
Oh, David, I would just like to recommend, I think we're getting a little off topic, that this is really the discussion for the next meeting. I think this meeting.
Move on to finance? Okay.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
All right, so come back to that on the 18th. And I'll try and prepare some stuff that will allow you to to think about that as constructively as possible.
A meeting to act.
Yeah, no, I think your idea of kind of a table is great, and I think it would allow everyone to kind of think about this more clearly and efficiently.
Okay. All right. Future debate. Finance. Yeah, because I see it's getting a little late here.
Yeah, it is. I haven't had my dinner.
Okay. So Mary, are you still on the line?
I'm here. I think she's there.
Here as well. And I'm
Okay.
just trying to pull up my spreadsheet unless you happen to have it.
No, we need to share the screen. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And then Laser, are other people authorized to share their screens?
I can make Mira co-host.
Okay.
Well, if I turn my video on, you're not going to be able to see anything. Amy?
Yes.
You have the spreadsheet. I sent you the fund balance. I did it in a Google Doc the other day.
For the reserves?
For the reserves. And then do you want to open that and share your screen?
See if I can get that going. It says
Okay.
host disable participant screen sharing.
Yep, hold on. So let me give it to Amy. Okay, Amy, you should be.
I'm gonna sign off because I got church tonight, so I gotta go.
All right. Thank you, Ruth.
Bye, Ruth.
I'll
Bye.
see you guys on the 18th.
Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Doesn't look like what I need.
Okay. I have.
Oh, wait a minute.
It's in Google Sheets.
Yeah.
And it's called fund balance as of 6/30/2020.
No. I have the budget transfers. 1 second.
David, isn't that what you shared?
I do have something. I don't know if it. I got that yesterday. Has it changed any since yesterday?
Do you want me to share it with Laser?
Here, let me.
Here.
Oh, you have it?
I have it, but let me see. When I click on it, it's not going to the screen. It says you are sharing.
We're seeing your screen. We're seeing the quick access of your file explorer.
Ah.
Okay, so if you can get that to come up.
No.
I shared it with Laser.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I apologize. My first time. Do you see it?
Yes.
What do you see?
As of 6/30, unemployment insurance reserve.
Is that
reserve
it?
for encumbrances?
That's it, right?
Yep. That's the first tab.
That is it.
Okay. So let me go back in a sec.
Thank you for your patience.
All right, I'm trying to pull it up. And now that we're sharing, so can you scroll up a bit?
Oh.
So this is as the reserves as of June 30th. You have your unemployment insurance reserve at a balance of roughly just over 35,000. That reserve is used specifically for unemployment. You have your reserve for encumbrances, which is 264. It shows up tiny on my screen, so I apologize. 264,058.16. These are purchases that were made or orders that were placed last year that we haven't received yet, and they're carried forward.
There
Thank you. I can see, Laser.
That's better. That's better.
I can see. Though that's money that you you placed orders for last year and you did not receive the merchandise or service. So those monies are carried into the current school year. You have your reserve for retirement contribution. We spoke about that last year. It's 1.4 million. And this is to be used for retirement purposes only. We did speak about before kind of dividing that out between ERS and TRS retirement, and then moving funds into the repair reserve. I would at this point recommend holding off a little bit to see what the governor does with a retirement incentive. If he does actually do one, you have the money to participate in that. And the logic behind holding off a little bit. So let's say, oh, it's gone. It disappeared on me. Let's say that the governor offers an incentive. The district would have, you would, if it's like it was before, you would you'd opt in or opt out. If you opted in, you would have 5 years to make the payment. So if an employee wanted to retire, it costs the district money. I don't know how much money it costs. It's based on each individual person with their years of service and their age. But the state, they would tell you that. I would recommend that you leave it sitting there just to see what happens in the next few months. And then if the board, if nothing happens, if the board chooses to move it into the retirement or into the repair reserve, you could do that as well. But you should leave some in there.
So this is a year-end thing. So if you come to this year, the end of this year, then we might move the money if nothing happens in terms of legislation.
Right. If nothing happens in terms of legislation, because if it did happen in terms of legislation, the district would have an option of spreading it out over 5 years. At least that's what they did in the past. So you're either going to increase your retirement cost lines, your retirement budget, or you're going to pay it out of this. If you were to pay it out of this in a one-time lump sum, let's just say you have 5 teachers that are retiring, some of your more expensive teachers, and you didn't have to replace them. You would be saving 500. And again, these are low numbers that I'm giving you. Let's assume they make 100,000. You're going to save $500,000 in your budget. You could then reallocate that to your interfund transfer line. It has the same effect, but it would be a more, it'd be a reoccurring, because once you get money into your interfund transfer line, you're going to want to leave it there and continue to add on it over the years.
Okay. So do we have any idea about how much money, if you divide this thing into TRS and ERS, and then a little bit left over for facilities, is the best way to the best idea is to talk to the independent auditor to figure that out? Are there maximums for what the funds are supposed to contain?
We actually, when we looked at this last year, and unfortunately I don't have that in front of me, we actually had what the state would allow, the percentages. So I believe, Mr. Warner, you have that information already, and I can look back through my records to see if I can locate that as well.
So that's in a board packet?
I think it was in a board packet, and I think we had several discussions about it on what we could put in the different ones.
And that's where my straw number of 750,000 came from. Okay, good.
Yep.
All right, so we'll look for that.
Mary, I'm sorry. Before you go on, I'm just wondering. These are numbers for this year, because we had this discussion last year, and I think that we had concluded that we could transfer about, if memory serves me, $400,000 to our capital reserve fund from this reserve for retirement. Did we ever do that, or no?
No, you never did that.
And why didn't we do that? Were we?
There were discussions on it.
Yeah.
I think it was difficult to make a decision as to how much would go into which account, and then COVID hit.
Okay, so this is now kind of rolled over into this year, basically.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
And it's a separate reserve fund, so it will sit there until we do something with it.
Yes, that's going to sit there. That's money the district has.
Got it. All right.
Okay, and then you're welcome. You have your reserve for property loss. That's been on the books for years, and that's something I think we want to look at during the course of this year to see if it's necessary. You have your reserve for tax certiaries. Again, that's just a percentage of the liability of the tax certs. And Amy has the individual breakdown. And I believe that was in a Friday packet as well, but if it wasn't, Amy, could we make sure that we get that in a Friday packet for the board? Reserve for employee benefits, we have $422,432.21. And that's basically we use that to pay sick leave when people retire. So if you had a whole bunch of retirements next year, you have the money. We set those funds aside. We'll assume that, you know, you might have so many staff that could potentially retire, and we set aside what you can for their sick leave payout per the contract and any kind of vacation pay per contract. Miscellaneous reserves is $643,578.57. And that's been established for several years in the district. And that's really set up for grants, specifically ECP and rate setting in the event money is lost. Then we have our assigned for future capital repairs, the 2.2. We did that the year before, and we're still kind of waiting on the board to see what they want to do with that. Our unreserved fund balance, that's the money you can do whatever you want with. You should maintain that at a 4% allowable level. That's what the state says. I guess you would just have to think about it this way. If all of a sudden, and we've actually used this before and have been fortunate enough to be able to replace it. So when we had the water main break, or when we had the boilers go down, we did use some of this money, and we were able to replace it at the end of the year by monitoring our expenses throughout the year. But you want to keep, as best as you possibly can, that 4% unreserved fund balance, and that's what's allowed by law. And then if you recall, during the budget process last year, we increased our appropriated fund balance from 1.5 to 2 million, because we knew that, you know, our revenues were coming in higher than our expenses because of COVID. So one of the things that we did with budget development was appropriate an additional 500,000 towards this year's budget. Okay. Do you want to go to the capital one?
I have a question. I know I'm going to sound like a complete dummy here. Can you just explain to me this last line, exactly what that is, of the appropriated fund balance?
Yeah, that's money that we actually have in our 2021 budget as a revenue item.
Okay, and what can we use it for?
Well, the goal,
Reduce the levy.
You know, it's used to offset the levy, but the goal is to always try to maintain that. You would use that. You would use that if, again, as we talk about a year, okay, such as state aid. Let's say they really do cut state aid 20%. Let's say you have, you know, other revenues that come in short. Let's say all of a sudden you have another water main break. We would start using that first and go to our fund balance. So it's there if it's needed, but what I've tried to do since I've been there is to monitor that and try to make sure that that remains there. You want to be able to, because if all of a sudden that money is gone, the 2 million, I mean, that can be eaten up very quickly. You just want to maintain that, because otherwise it'll increase the levy on the other end.
Okay, so it's a kind of a ballast and also another emergency fund. I mean, that's what you eat first before you go to the unreserved fund balance.
Well, yes, we would go to that first, but
Okay.
again, we do try, we watch constantly, because I've always wanted to maintain that from one year to the next. So you had it when you do have that emergency that you can't maintain it.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Cheryl had a question. Dr. Allen?
Does one of these lines include the money that's been set aside for the repair of the roof of the mansion?
No, that's on our next spreadsheet.
Thank you.
Do we want to move to the next spreadsheet, Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Okay. And I shared that one with Laser as well. And I think, Amy, you have that as well, too. And that one, Amy, is called capital project status.
Did I just stop sharing?
Just needs to be a little bigger.
Everyone, oh, okay.
Oh, yes, I can't see this, Laser. I'm blind. Remember that.
All right, hold on. It's
And if we could make it the whole spreadsheet so I can see everything, or if I can minimize this.
oh, it's not. All right, yeah, here. Hold on 1 second.
Okay, I was able to pull it up on my own. Is it for everybody else?
Can you share screen?
I can if I share a screen and I go with the video.
Ah, there we go.
Okay.
Whoever's
So
doing that.
the way, yep, the way I tried to break this out, I started out with the repair reserve fund. So prior to the district establishing the 700,000, there was an amount in a repair reserve fund of 74,431. In 2016, the voters approved 700,000. So that brought us up to 774,000. We had a project done at Highview, which was 109,600. We had a project done at the high school, which was 148,841. And that brings us down, and then that brought us down to 515. We adjusted for interest. In June, you approved money for the mansion roof of 286. And then we also added, yep, we also added money from last year. If you recall, the voters approved us to add any excess funds to the repair reserve. Okay. So our balance in the repair reserve is 959 or 952. The other page will show it'll show more than that, but that's only because we have not moved the 286 out of there yet, which Amy and I can do that tomorrow. So you have 952,000 available to do some type of project. You have your assigned future capital projects, which is on that other page. That's as your fund balance, that's sitting there. Then in 18-19, the voters approved 265,000. And in that, it included a playground for ECP, which was done. And you have 166,180 remaining for the Highview and Jackson exterior doors. In 1920, we budgeted 1.3 million. That was for the mansion roof and elevators at the high school. Mr. Falcone was able to finally find a vendor to fix the elevators. So you have 1.3 for the mansion roof. Then you have this school year, the 2021, we had budgeted 1,331,000. Part of that was for a playground at an ECP playground at Jackson. which I know we sent a quote for a playground of 102. We had a playground at Highview. Mr. Falcone was able to get a quote for that of about 130,000. And then we also spoke about a playground at Bailey, but we budgeted 75,000 because at the time we were speaking with the town and trying to come to some kind of agreement with use of facilities and a playground. So assuming you do the playground at Jackson, Highview, and still keep 75,000 for the other playground, you have just over $1 million. You also have your schools funding. So those are the different funds that are available. So the pending projects, you have your mansion roof, which is at SED right now of $1,586,370. And
That's the
part of
sum of the
that is
286 and the 1.3?
Yep, that's the 286 and the 1.3. So I've already deducted that. So you
Okay.
can't, and I've checked it off. That money you have, it's sitting there. You have money sitting and waiting for Highview and Jackson exterior doors. You've got 166,000 there. You have Smart Schools money that should still be sitting there waiting. We were going to use that for the secure vestibule.
Right.
Now, I know that there are ventilation issues. I know, and I'm not including the $750,000 because that's in your general fund. The ventilation issues, whatever else the BS came up with, the board has to determine what they want to do with that and what else happens once Bailey, what other issues we have to fix at Bailey that the 750 won't cover. So you have money set aside for most things. I didn't put a dollar amount for ventilation because I don't know what that's going to be, but money that you can use for anything for the buildings. You have 952,000 sitting in the repair reserve. You've got your 2.2 in assigned future capital projects. And then you've got the remainder of the 2021 budgeted amount. So you've got just under 4.2 million. So if there's a project that you want for just under 4.2 million, you have the money.
Okay. And if I took all of the stuff that we listed out ventilation wise that were proposed projects, I came out with 6.5 million. So unless we can go and dip into next year's funding or pull something from the other reserves, there's not enough to cover all the projects that we already have laid out. So we have to do some prioritization. So let me ask you, do you anticipate another $1.3 million coming out of next year's budget, or do you have any idea?
Well, I mean, I would put that money in next year's budget. You have it in there as a baseline. You should never take that out. You should always keep that. And then anything that you do, so let's say you go and you repair the ventilation and it's whatever the dollar amount may be. You have to have plans and specs. They have to be submitted to state ed. It all has to go through SED approval.
Correct. Okay, so there is our answer, at least in a general sense, to what kind of funding we have. We have 4198431. We think to allocate for construction projects, and if we go into next year, we can add another 1.3. We think.
Yep, and then just keep in mind that if you're using, you're going to have hearings. You're touching the repair reserve. You got to have a hearing. The community has to know about it. Okay.
Okay. Are there any questions?
I have a question, David.
Yes, Rita.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I see a lot of things like exterior doors for Highview and the LJ, but I understand that Bailey needs a lot of repair. I mean, I see nothing there for any kind of repair at Bailey. Why not? I mean,
you're not looking at the BCS. You're looking at a subset of stuff that we've got in process, and the stuff we've got in process has to do with well, what we thought we could get out of the repair reserve before COVID-19 hit.
Oh, okay.
And ventilation because of COVID-19. So certain things have risen in priority compared to where they were in the base BCS. So we can go back to the building condition survey, which is also, by the way, posted on the district website under departments facilities. You can scroll down there and look at each building and see what it needs. And you go look at RJ Bailey. It has its own topic of everything from soup to nuts that Bailey needs. That other piece of paper that I showed you earlier that shows the totals, it's got a total of everything that Bailey needs and what they think is priority one. So you can look at that too, and when you make your judgment as to what you want to do.
And Mr. Warner, before we move off of this, I will say, you know, when we talk about Highview and Jackson Doors, I believe that money is already earmarked for that. So and that's what the voters approved. So if you were to go and change that and all of a sudden say, you know what, that's not our priority anymore, I think you would have to have voter approval to change that. Because when you go to submit to state ed, they're going to want to know where the money come from and where's the approval. And the voters, when we did that 265, they were very specific. And we were specific. It was for ECP and those doors.
Okay.
So if you change that, which I'm not saying you can't, you would just have to, maybe you'd have to do another referendum on the budget, you know, when you put the budget out in May.
And similarly, you can't use Smart Schools funding for just anything. And the mansion roof, well, the mansion roof is already in place. I think it would be a big mess if we tried to pull it out now. So I would say we should go forward with our 4.1 and maybe scrape something out of the other reserve funds that we just looked at on the other spreadsheet and look at the 1.3 from next year's budget and see what we can do with that. And beyond that, we should probably look for a small bond.
You can't take anything out of next year's budget. It doesn't exist yet. You can't take it.
Correct, but I may not do the repairs. I'm not trying to repair this year with next year's money. I have to allocate things for next year.
Right, and then just make sure that when you do the budget, you have a similar referendum that will allow you, if you have excess funds, that would go to the repair reserve.
The same thing we did this year.
Same thing, you want the same thing.
The same proposition. Okay.
Yes.
All right, very good. Are there any other questions?
Yes, sorry. So Mary,
Good.
I think you just answered one of my questions. The door project is not up at SED. That's just money set aside. Done plans and specs or anything for the door project?
No, that is not up at SCD.
Okay, and we haven't done plans and specs yet either.
No, we may not have to because it's smaller amounts, but we need that in writing from the architect. My recollection is that one of the architects said we would not need to go to SED for that, but we never got that in writing.
Okay.
And then we changed architects.
Okay, and then my next question is, you were going through the process that we need plans approved, we need plans and specs from the architect, we need SED approval. Can you, and so two things, you brought up the fact that the moving money to or from a repair reserve needs to have a hearing and
yes,
approved.
Yes, always.
Can you talk about how that timing of that hearing and approval fits into the SED? Like, should the monies be approved before plans and specs are made? Probably.
Oh, absolutely. So if the board decided they wanted to take the 900,000 from the repair reserve, they would have a public hearing first, and they would be telling you, we're going to do X with this money. They go through the public hearing, the board votes, and then the money's okay to be used. Then what would happen is you'd go to your architect, the architect would draw up whatever plans and specs would be needed. They would be submitted to state ed, and you would go through that whole process. And then once you had state ed approval, then you'd go out to bid, and the board would award the bids and construction could start. It's a long process. It's not something that, you know, you can expect to happen in 3 months.
Well, I'm asking because, as you alluded to earlier, we had trouble getting things put on the board agenda to have the hearing for the movement to ERS, TRS, and repair reserve. And I just want to be sure now, Mr. Warner, that is it when this committee makes a recommendation that something gets done, that this committee needs to somehow
The
make.
committee makes a recommendation, the board approves the recommendation, and then we go forward to our hearing process. Now, you know the architects are involved earlier on at the estimation level before we get into the detailed level, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, good. Because otherwise, how would you know how much it costs?
Right, just because the hearings we thought we were going to happen last year never got on the board agenda, and I don't know where
We've been busy trying to get the schools open, so we're.
No, I'm talking from December, November, December, January, February, but
Understood.
leave it there.
Anyone else? Okay, we're coming into the home stretch now. Can we unshare? Or maybe I should share the agenda. Okay, so let's see if I share my screen. Okay, 5-year financial plan, currently posted from 2020 to 2025. It's a 5-year projection. We kind of look and say, if we keep going like this for 5 years, are we going to run out of money? And the projection that's currently posted on the website assumed that we were going to have a $73 million budget this year instead of a $71 million budget, and therefore it's all projected high. So that needs to be fixed. I believe further down in this listing, there's a copy of it. You can look at it online if you want to. Second. Past all this. 5-year plan, there you go. Right, 2019 is one column, 2020 all the way up to 2025, and you watch what you think the budget should do. This guy down here should be 71, not 73, and then everything else gets reduced from there. And so that's something that needs to be fixed. Not a lot to say there, other than you just got to do, somebody's got to do it. And then budget code transfer reporting. We had some question as to, we wanted to look not at just at certain budget code transfers, but at all of them. And the treasurer's, one of the treasurer's jobs would be to do that. The question is, what kind of format do you want? How much detail do you want? Are you looking for like a monthly summary of all transfers, or do you have like an individual report for an individual transfer? So the idea was the treasurer would show us what she's got, and we should opine on what we think the board should be looking at. Amy, do you have something to show us?
Yes, I do. Liza, I sent it to you. I'm gonna try and see if I could bring it up. If not,
which one?
the budget transfers. I emailed those to you.
Okay.
I have two different types of formats that you can look at.
Which one do you want first? I have.
It doesn't matter.
Oh, okay. Mr. Warner, just need to stop sharing. Okay.
Okay, so this particular report could be run on a monthly basis. It's considered the budget transfer schedule report for, and this is actually for September. This one, I like the other one a little bit better. You'll see that one looks a little bit cleaner. But it basically will give you the detailed description. It gives you the amount that's being transferred out and transferred in, as well as the corresponding account codes. Where you see approval status not required, that's because it's under the threshold. And of course, if it's above the threshold, then we would definitely get board approval. But this is a particular report that we could run on a monthly basis. This is a PDF. It can actually be exported into an Excel spreadsheet if that's something that the board desires.
So Amy, so this is something that you can actually generate on a monthly basis, a little bit like the Warren reports, right? You could, okay.
Yes, yes, it can be run. And then this is one format, and then Laser, if you want to show the other. I kind of like this one because it specifically says transfer out, transfer in, so the board can see.
So budget code transfers beyond a certain amount have to show up on the agenda.
Right.
And the board looks at those and approves those piecemeal, but you could have lots and lots of little transfers from different budget categories.
Right.
And then,
right.
So we want to look at everything and
right. And so this is the other format. It's, again, it's the September report that you just saw, and it gives the explanation. It also gives the account that it's coming out of, the debit, and then the account that it's credited into. So it depends upon your pleasure, but they both provide the same information. And of course, at the bottom, it gives the total amount of what was, transferred.
So Amy and Laser, I hate to make you toggle back and forth, but
I knew that was gonna happen. I knew it. And I was trying to figure out a way.
I know, I'm sure.
show them side by side so you can look back and forth. But,
all right, Laser, that's on you.
I almost prefer the first one because it seems like it gives the names of the various categories, so that makes it easier to understand.
Yeah.
No, this one has the totals at the end, which is nice, but I mean, I think I don't know what everyone else thinks, but I think I prefer the first one.
I do too.
Chris, you have an opinion?
All right, it may be a little small. Oh, can you see my screen?
Yeah,
I see it. Yeah, okay. I think I definitely prefer the first one.
Let's see if I can increase.
Cover the negative balance in this account.
Oh,
okay,
sorry.
so but the explanation is here. Okay, so
right.
the explanation is in both reports. So they're even there. So all of the things being equal, if you have those labels, that's an improvement. Yes.
Right. So I actually do prefer the first one as well, Tanya.
Okay.
The first one doesn't have the totals, right?
Yeah, the problem with the first one is it doesn't have the totals. Yeah.
Scroll, yeah. So, but Laser, scroll down on that first one to the bottom. There.
Oh, there's a grand total. Okay, for the month, basically. Okay.
Right. It gives it to you that way. Yeah.
Yeah, got it.
So, and this is pretty easy to run. So.
Well, David and Ashley, I don't know what you guys think, but my preference is really the first one because I think that was, for me, I mean, I know I'm the one who requested this, so I'm just saying I kind of wanted to see the shifting between the categories more so than the actual overall dollar amount. So that was...
I think I can add numbers more easily than I can do lookups on individual budget codes. So in terms of amount of overhead, I'd rather go for it with the first format.
Yeah, I'm also gonna agree with you guys on number one. I would have loved if the totals were there too, but I will take this format over the totals any day.
So Amy, of course, the inevitable question is, can you combine the two, or is this just kind of the way your software works? That
this is the report out of our Envision The only way you can combine the two would be if I were to export it into an Excel spreadsheet, and then, you know, provide the totals. That would be the only way. And then I would, you know, just to show you, I could show you the PDF and then also the Excel spreadsheet and then total it. Other than that, that's the way it's run. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I'd rather keep it the way it comes out. I mean, my opinion is I'd rather keep format 1 the way it comes out.
Yeah.
And have you provide that on a regular basis than bog you down with adding up columns in Excel and formulas. That's just my opinion.
Yes, agreed.
What is the threshold that requires approval?
Oh, 20,000.
20K, yeah.
Yeah. So.
All right. So we have a decision. We'll run that back. Board format number 1.
Yeah, so.
Agreed. Okay. Anybody else have any opinions on that? All right. And so now we go. I think we're almost done. I think there's one last item, and that is comprehensive annual financial report. And I have at the end of this document a like a 1-page summary of all the wonderful things that it does, so you can look at that to your heart's content. Mary, you want to give us a little rundown on what the CAFR does?
Mr. Warner, Mary's computer had just died and she wanted to apologize, but she's not coming back on.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, Amy, would you like to say a few words about the CAFR?
I mean, pretty much it's self-explanatory. It's a really good, how can I say it? It actually gives you, I like if you scroll down the statistical section, because you know you have the introductory section, the financial section, which is pretty much what we already get with respect to our financial statements. But it gives the statistical section, which gives you the 10-year financial trend and some other information about the district, as you see here, demographic information and so forth, which you know, it just digs deeper and it really gives a full picture, you know, of our district, because we can always look at the financial statement and get an idea. But when you start looking at statistics or the introductory section, which actually gives you a full picture of the district, and it's a nice tool. And the association, the ASBO, you know, when you submit that, they kind of, it just looks good. It just looks.
They give you an award.
They give you an award for it. Yeah. So that's pretty much what I know about it.
I would say the introductory section is the area if you want to boast about your district and and you're talking to your bond counselor or somebody, you say, look at what we've got, and that's there. There's an executive summary in that part. Yeah. So if people don't want to delve down deep, then they've got something. The financial section, you've got the independent auditors report stuff that we get from O'Connor Davies. Right. And then you've got a management discussion and analysis. So it's like, okay, here's what we think about it. Here's our opinion on it. So it forces you to process it because you have to, in order to write it.
Yeah.
And then the statistical section, if you've got 10 years worth of data, there have been many times when I want to come up with some kind of trend, and it really helps to know what the past is like. And we have all these individual reports already, but they're not together. So I think it's worth doing, and it's on our list of goals for the year. And we've got, if you want more information on it, there's a link. The ASBO guys have like 8 training films on it, and there's a 38-page checklist for what the required elements are. And so it's all there if you want to look at it, but that's pretty much it at a high level. Any comments? Any questions? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned, 7:20. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you in a couple of weeks on the 18th of November at 5 p.m.
Good night.
Later.
Great meeting, David. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Now, before you end this, I want to, Laser, I want to copy the chat.
Oh, I think I can leave. Amy, thank you so much for those reports.
Only Laser can't leave.
That's great. Okay. Bye-bye, everyone.
Goodbye. Let's see. So, go to screen.
When I save the meeting, I save the chat also.
You do?
Yeah, because it saves the audio. Gives me a bunch of options here. But you can save and then
Okay. Well, Word is starting here, and as soon as I copy to my clipboard, you can exit the scene. Just a second.
Yeah, no problem.
And if you want to send me.
Yeah, so I could send you the audio transcription and the actually I could send it all to you. It doesn't. Yeah, so you have it all.
Yeah,
the video.
Well, everything